Aloha. With this build, I wanted to address the last few videos and just kind of share my perspective and where I'm coming from in reference to the extremes of this information that is being shared because it's part of my process. And if you go through the videos in time, like from my first video up until now, you can see the progression of information and the perspectives being more weighted in a sense, like they have more depth to them in relation to like solid, like locking things down into a solid state of understanding, getting into the understanding, and eventually expanding upon the overstanding. A lot of the information boils down to not really the information boils down to individuals and groups of people who are going to live and die, in some cases, live and die for the causes of humanity, the causes of nature, the causes of the spirit, the causes of the soul. On the other hand, you have people who will live and die for the causes of themselves. And you have large group of people who team up together in order to live for the causes of themselves. What happens is when you have the groups of people who are for the causes of themselves in power over time, in order to distract people from realizing their inherent power in living for the causes of humanity, that inherently, their very existence inherently threatens the individuals and the groups of people who have chosen to live and die for the causes of themselves. And it's so much more complex than racism. Racism is a huge part of, like, it's a huge piece on the board that is used to maintain the distraction, the separation, the lack of empowerment. It's used to maintain the illusions of accountability in most cases. And that's really what I want to focus on right now, because like this image is showing you, remember, you can't reach what's in front of you until you let go of what's behind you. This is just another way of saying you can't move forward until you let go of that weight that you're carrying on in your trailer. And the mechanism to maintain this space, because this space is a space of limbo, the mechanism to maintain people in limbo, because once you start moving forward, once you start creating your future, once you start realizing and anchoring yourself into the present moment from an empowered space of understanding, and overstanding your previous moments, your past, your ancestors, the truth of that space. Once you start doing that, you start to empower yourself, and empowering an individual and empowering groups of people start from that space outside of just focusing only on yourself. Outside of that, it inherently threatens the system that has made its money off of profiting off of other people's demise. The colonial system has been alive and well for hundreds and hundreds of years. And the main reason why people haven't addressed the system as a whole is because the space of hopelessness has been maintained. The space of separation has been maintained. The space of holding on to your resources, siphoning, filtering your resources has maintained this hopeless and kind of disempowered state of being. Maintaining sickness and disease is what allows people to, in a sense, start to celebrate their own enslavement. Once you have people celebrating their own enslavement, now you're not dealing with humanity anymore. You're dealing with robots. You're dealing with zombies. You're dealing with the living dead. And a lot of the reasons why it's so difficult for specifically so-called white people to acknowledge a lot of the information that I've been sharing for Dr. Laila Africa is because what that information does is it's in that same moment, it's a mirror. It's a mirror because what's happening right now is that people are not wanting, in many cases, you're not even allowed to look at historical information. This is why a lot of the books were burned. This is why this is why everything that is modern today, what we call modern medicine, modern science, modern intelligence, modern society as a whole, everything that is modern is not brand new. It's been reverse engineered in many cases, like Dr. Laila Africa was talking about in reference to computer chips and being made out of crystal. Well, your blood is crystal. Your body is crystal in a sense that it's a solidified state of light, solidified state of energy, and this energy is intelligent. So just look at the complexities of the body. Look at the complexities of every part of your body. And now look at the complexities of like a computer. That's the simplest form. It's like a Flintstones version of your body in reference to the divine nature of the body. Like, really think about the intelligence that has gone into the liver, into the heart, into the kidneys, into the lungs, into the brain, into the pineal gland, into your eyes, into the way you smell, into the way that you listen, into the way that you feel, everything that you taste. The complexities of this reality are so important to understand, and overstand, because once you start doing that, that's another way of empowering yourself. But modern medicine doesn't deal with healing the person. It doesn't focus on the person. It focuses on the disease at best. Because even worse than that, modern medicine focuses on the side effects to the disease. That's the main thing that's being focused on today. So you're taking prescription drugs not to make you better, but to, as a person, as like a divine machine in many cases, like from one perspective. Because once you start focusing on the side effects, you can make a lot of money off of that. The way the system is designed is to cater to the individuals and the groups of people who are only in this skin, only in this reality for themselves. That is the status quo in reference to the system as a whole. The status quo is to keep people in that space. Everybody in between totally focusing their energy on helping humanity get back to an even keel, or some kind of even keel at all. The people that are in between that space and the people who are only looking to work for themselves at the expense of everybody else, the people in between are the ones who are actually the batteries. That's where the power is. That's the status quo. So in a subconscious or unconscious space, we are trained to not care about that, because you are given something that is not even, it's a doggy treat, it's a toy. Modern society is a doggy treat. And since it's been going on for so long, people are celebrating it and defending it. And this is not new. The way modern society is designed is to distract people from what predates modern society, and to distract people not only in a sense of the civilizations that were in way more balance than what is going on today, but to also distract people from understanding a lot of the stories. Like, a lot of that information in there, that's embarrassing for a lot of people. Like in the videos that I've just shared, like, that information, it's embarrassing for people who are now priding themselves in today's modern society. It's embarrassing. That embarrassment is an example of the power that gets removed simply from information, simply from researching information. And the deflection from that is to say, you're racist, you're this, you're that, and to totally get distracted by what they've been programmed to think, instead of actually thinking for themselves. So what's happening is the people that are in the middle are actually the batteries and the machine for the people who are only in it for themselves. And what's happening is the people who are in this system for themselves they're in it in order to maintain that space at the expense of humanity, at the expense of other people, at the expense of nature, at the expense of the divine nature of who and what you are. So you're not allowed to go into the alchemy of what this body is. You're not allowed to go into the alchemy of your higher mind. You're not allowed to go into the alchemy of your soul. Modern society says that world doesn't exist. That information is not even to be looked at. Why? Because you're going to start unraveling not only the so-called power of this system today, but you're going to start unraveling you're going to start unraveling the empowered nature of who and what you are. Naturally, you don't need to dress up. You don't need to wear all this stuff. You don't need to put computer chips in your body. Your system is already, from what we can't even put to words, that intelligence has pieced together this experience for what? That's one question. For what? Why? How? And then going into who you are. Who are you? What are you? How are you? Why are you? Like, these questions are not allowed to be answered, because if you start asking and answering those questions, your critical thought will inherently take away from the system. So let's take it to the extreme of, like I was explaining in reference to the channeled information and how that's part of the alien agenda, the New Age agenda, the transhumanism movement, and simulation theory. Take it to the extreme. For example purposes, this intelligence that made you naturally is inside of everything. It is, everything natural. So everything that is synthetic, theoretical in a sense, based upon the synthetic universe, you could see that as the extreme opposite of nature. Manifested into the reality, modern society makes its money off of destroying nature, destroying you, and telling you that this is the only way reality should be. And in fact, you should protect and want it to be. So going into the information about like a machine, just imagine if a machine intelligence needed to create bodies. What do you think that machine intelligence would do? If it was interacting with living people, it would trick the individuals into creating these vessels, into creating this space for that synthetic intelligence to take over. One version is channeling. A more extreme, obvious version is possession. And what I'm saying is that everything that separates you from nature, separates you from your empowered space, is another version of possession. In a sense that prescription drugs, alcohol, mainstream society over-sexualizing your child's mind, your mind overall, overstimulating your reality and desensitizing you. Those create openings that largely you're not aware of because it's happening in your subconscious, or like Dr. Laila was saying, your involuntary brain or your involuntary reality. It's the everything that is this experience. And the other side, the voluntary part, the conscious part says, well, this is what's happening. This is what's actually going on, based upon your focus, based upon how it is that you paint, how it is that you speak, how it is that you, whatever it is that you do, you sing, whatever it is. You're not allowed to go there because modern society is the end all be all. So to loop back to like what I was saying, this modern society is being driven by a destructive intelligence. There's so much information that could go into what that destructive intelligence is doing in modern society. I've pretty much listed off as much as I could in all the videos that I've uploaded to this channel. And there's so much more that I haven't even gotten into yet. What this information is ultimately describing to people is the destructive intelligence that is inherent in this system. Which is why you have to celebrate this world. You have to have people celebrating and defending this world. Otherwise, it will crumble under its own weight. So you have this whole sex robot thing that's coming on to the scene right now. And you can see this emptiness that people are embodying. So just empty that they actually think, and they will actually get people who are just going to buy into this synthetic reality. It's already happening. People are already doing it. People are going to buy even further into this synthetic reality, not even knowing they're buying themselves out of their own humanity. And since so much has built up this empire, people are going to be, they're not even going to know it. They're not even going to see what's going on. Literally de-evolving people. Being told everything is the opposite in this world. They're telling you that they are the evolutionary peak. The system, is the evolutionary peak of reality based upon monkey evolution, based upon the Big Bang, based upon their theoretical universe. Meanwhile, they are de-evolving you in every way. The education system, the healthcare system is destroying your body. The food is destroying your body. The water is destroying your body. Fluoridated water, polluting the oceans, poisoning the soils, putting all these military bases all over the world. This destructive intelligence is what needs to be addressed. Not the symptoms of the destructive intelligence, like heliocentrism, like racism, like colonialism, like globalism, or whatever else is being put out there. These are all side effects to a destructive intelligence that makes its money, that makes its energy, that makes its life off of the destruction of nature, off of convincing people to join that crew to destroy nature from the inside out. This is what this sex robot stuff is. This is why you are overstimulated in your reality and desensitized. Everything has to be has to maintain the facade of evolution, the facade of expansion. So instead of love being the centerpiece, or a real connection being the centerpiece of modern relationships, the centerpiece of modern relationships is stuff like a ring, marriage, Tinder, online dating. Like, all of this stuff is the centerpiece for something as natural as being with somebody. And we accept it because we just believe that that's what it's all about. It's not. It has an intent there. Everything is backwards. Your education system, it's not for the betterment of humanity. It's for the mediocrity of humanity at best, because ultimately it's for your demise. Everything is backwards. So if they're telling you that they're doing something in the name of God, what God are they talking about? They're not talking about the natural. They're not talking about that. They're talking about the synthetic. And the synthetic God is actually what's being worshipped these days. It's just a word. It's a phrase. It's like the difference between marriage and love. You can be married. That don't mean you're in love with that person. That doesn't mean that you are connected, soul connected. People get married for the dumbest shit. But that's the whole point. Like the church itself. Look at all the, if you want to start to unravel some of the information from just like an easy space of seeing how jacked up this system is, just look at the church. Look at the Catholic Church. Look at the history. Like, that is the worst. That's the worst place, because it's telling you, that's the worst like consciousness, because what it's doing is it's telling you it's for God. Yet they are covering up these abuses and this rape that's happening to these children, these priests. Check out a movie called Spotlight, where it talks about the Boston Globe unraveling, just in the Boston area, something like 270 something priests who are abusing these kids. That sets the tone for the abuse to happen in society. If the individual who supposedly speaks for God does these unthinkable things to these children, then the people who are going to church, they don't have much to live up to. And if they do mess up, they can just confess it and be washed away. The way the system is designed, it is to have all of its bases covered. The whole church, the whole Jesus program, the mainstream religion stuff, all of that, all of that is like play school spirituality. It's play school spirituality. And since it feels good and it's basically in many cases the only option, that's what it really boils down to. People have a lack of options in reference to their relationship to the soul, their relationship to the higher mind, their relationship to the body. People have a lack of options because they don't know how to understand from the inside out. They can't see that space because that is taboo. What happened back in the day in reference to the church in relationship to the state, in order to, just like they demonized, they brought the Bible in, they brought the church, their priests, the Jesuits over, and started to say that you're just savage. If you don't want to be a savage anymore, Mr. Native American, Mr. Indigenous American, if you don't want to be a savage anymore, all you have to do is be saved. Read this book. Go to this church. Pray to this God. And you, my child, will no longer be a savage. You will be blessed by the Almighty. Now, go in the other room and take off all your clothes. You see the disconnect there? This is what this system, you still have a Queen of England who owns all of this land, like the majority of land. That asshole still owns Canada, sitting on a throne over there next to the Vatican, owning land that was stolen by genociding and massacring the people, poisoning the people in every way, spiritually, psychologically, and physically. You are not dealing with people who have a connection with nature. You are not dealing with people who have a connection with the spirit, a spirit. You are dealing with empty people. And the spectrum is huge. You're dealing with disembodied entities. So when people get caught up in the race, like they can't get out of the race thing, they think I'm racist. Look, in the spectrum of so-called white people, because there are no white people, and that's enough for me to say, for people to just be like, to understand where I'm coming from. And if you're having trouble with that, there are no white people and there are no black people. First off, figure that shit out. Now that we've understood that that's the starting point, you still have some work to do in reference to what the program of white and black has done. Because you do have large groups of people who are saying, we are this color, which makes us supreme, superior, so superior that we will kill you. We will slaughter. We will genocide you because you are an animal. Those events have not been dealt with. They've not been acknowledged. This system will not acknowledge them to the depths of where they need to be. Because if they do that, they will remove their own power. So beyond the race thing, see, because what happens is the divide and conquer mechanisms, once they're carried out, you're going to have people who are just going to be like, well, which team should I join? Are you going to be a part of the winning team or the losing team? And the people who are alive at the expense of slaughtering all the other people, stealing all the resources, they're telling you they're the winning team. The winning team works for a synthetic god. The winning team claims to have all these systems connecting it to a god. What god? What is the church connected to? When it promotes cardinals and bishops and priests, it promotes those individuals in their system once they have been caught, once they have a record of abusing children. What God are they working for when that happens? Like the image that you're looking at right now. It's not only the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's the people who will pray to this synthetic god. They get more powerful in that world. They get some kind of energy from that synthetic god, while the people of nature constantly have their nature destroyed, taken. And that rape that happens to those children in those churches is the ultimate. It's the ultimate. And it can't be acknowledged because people's version of being connected to God goes through that system. The play school version of spirituality that is only existing in order to destroy people. It's not there for the benefit of the people. It's not there for the benefit of nature. It's there to control you, to stifle the connection that you could possibly get once you start making those connections yourself and stop needing to funnel your connections through this lack of options reality. So you have these people who are, and the flat earth community, so-called community, is a perfect example of what I'm saying in reference to, like, people saw firsthand when they went to the flat earth convention. It was basically a flat earth church convention. Brought to you by Christianity. Welcome to the 2017 Flat Earth Convention, brought to you by Jesus Christ. Come on down and be saved. Now they got two things, Jesus and Flat Earth. They're working together. Sign up here. People have a lack of options. Trapped in that reality, and the only person that's responsible to get out of that is the people who are trapped inside it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So you have images like this. Wake up, world. Most of what you see happening is it's been prophesied in the Bible. What's that supposed to mean? Why does this image exist? Why does that mentality exist? To maintain the power that the Bible and that system has over people. By updating it. Everything that happens today, everything that has been happening in the recent days, needs to be told to you by people who are in the Bible reality, constantly needing to validate themselves. So they will take everything out of the Bible. What if, like I said, there was no separation between church and state? That's why they have to say that today. There was no separation between church and state. What happened was there was a changeover. There was a changeover, and they got smart. They started they were using the monarchy to rule over the world, to just conquer the whole damn world in the name of God. Once people started making connections with their own spirituality, they called them witches. They called them heretics. They called them crazy. They put them in a box. They put them in a hole. They tied them up. They tortured them. They lynched them. Because they were protecting their empire. This is how today's modern empire came to be. Torture, genocide, massacre. This is how this system came to be. And people are so distracted. They're so happy, apparently happily living in this world without any spirituality, no connections, no health, no real interpretations of what's going on here. So you have all these systems that are around, that are only around to do the same thing that the Bible does with modern events, to update itself. So you have technology that's around only to update the enslavement of everybody. You have the church that's around to update the mediocrity connection that you have with the soul, with the spirit. You have the connection between politics and the church to maintain the system through God. The power of the system through God over you. What God, though? So this is how far it goes. People have to victimize themselves. Once there's so much information out there, people have to victimize themselves in order to hide how they have been the bully, how they have been the aggressor, how they have been the abuser. The abuser then has to victimize itself in order to hide the abuses that it's carried out. This is a mechanism to maintain that. Through the church is the confession, is you're all born in sin. That's it. It's just that simple. I was not born in sin. That's your bullshit ass excuse for how shit is the way it is today. That's a bullshit excuse to hide the people who make money, who make profit, who make a living off of that so-called sin. So fuck this bullshit about, oh yeah, well, you're born in sin. You are not born in sin. That's the play school version of how to control your ass. As long as you think that everything is about sin, everything is empty, you will allow this program to do whatever the hell it can think up, to do whatever it wants to do to other people and eventually to you. This is how the system says we're going to go fight the war on terrorism in the name of God, protecting our country, and God bless America, God, in God we trust, and all that other stuff. It's a hall pass. That's what the church is. It's a hall pass to do whatever they want because they can just wash it away. And since the majority of people are believing in that play school version of a connection to the spirit, you'd be crazy to say anything other than that. People who are talking about the other ways to connect to the spirit, simply by nature, go sit by the river. Go sit out in the forest. Go out in nature. That's your church. Your body is your temple. So you go out you take your temple into the temple, which is nature. What more do you need? You don't need to dress it up in a big ass hat and a big suit and a fancy all covered and draped in gold and all that shit. You think God requires all of that? No, mankind requires that in order to dupe your ass. And if you say anything about the church, what's it going to do? It's going to victimize itself. We've done so much. This is why in that documentary where they were talking about in Spotlight, well, it was a movie, but basically a documentary about the church, the corruption in the church. This is why a lot of people don't say anything in reference specifically to the individual. The little boy is not going to say anything to anybody else once a man of God tells that person not to say anything. They won't even tell their parents. So the same thing is happening. It's like, you don't want the priest to get in trouble. So now the priest is the victim after he's just abused its victim. So this church itself does the same thing to the people. It's abusing all of these kids. Psychologically, these adults too. It's abusing nature. And what happens when it's brought up or being held accountable? We've done so much for the city. The church has done so much for the city and the state and the politicians and the lawyers and everybody that's in this modern society. You don't want to take the church to court. You can't. It's foolproof. It's foolproof. That system. So when they're telling you they're doing something with God, believe it's the upside, it's the reverse. It's the reverse of that. You have the proof. It's been documented for years and years and years. And it will constantly try to victimize itself to distract you from holding it accountable. That's what the power grid's doing today. That's what church is doing today. That's what the university system is doing today. That's what the society as a whole is doing today. As soon as you start to say something, it automatically turns into the victim. And you have Hollywood and all these actors protecting the church, protecting the state. Colbert, heavy duty, Irish Catholic, throwing it around. All that power he has. Not a damn word about the church. That shit is a virus. Constantly going on and on. Like this image is showing you right now. White woman sprays sulfuric acid into her own face and blames it on a non-existent black woman. Why? Because she knows that she had a chance of getting away with that. So much so, playing the victim so much, she poured acid onto her own body. People do this all the time. This is how sick this society is. How sick the people are. The people are going to be a reflection of what the society is doing. You think you're dealing with adults? You think you're dealing with thinkers? These are grown-ass kids. Look at pop culture. It wants you to be a grown kid. To have the child mind. Because it's easier to overstimulate and desensitize the child. So don't allow them to get older. Don't allow them to grow wise. Maintain their emotional instability in this reality. Maintain their psychological instability in this reality. Maintain their spiritual instability in this reality. Maintain all of that. The way you maintain that is by giving the people a synthetic version of that, a prescription drug. Give them the new age. Give them transhumanism. Give them mainstream. Give them a few athletes, musicians who supposedly made it big in our system. Make people live vicariously through the paid slaves. Then you'll have an entire population of enslaved people who won't say anything. So then you have the arrogance that comes after all of this pride has been going on for years. You'll have people saying who they themselves are immigrants, descendants of immigrants. Saying stuff like this image is showing you right now. A good nation doesn't admit illiterate immigrants. The worst of the worst came over here from Europe when people started jumping on them boats. You can't say anything about that. You can't acknowledge that information. The dirtiest of the dirtiest, the most stinking ass they was put on those boats. Now they're wearing suits and ties, holding a political office, telling the original people of this land that they are no longer welcome on their own land. Why? Because these synthetic God worshippers had said so. And they will destroy you. in any way that they can. Ibuprofen was given out like candy when I was in the army. I mean, huge jugs of it. And I never knew why. Jugs. I mean, you had a tiny headache. You'd leave out of the sick call with a 800 milligram, like, how many was that big jug? It's like a big, you know what I'm talking about, that big, huge jug of pills. Ibuprofen linked to male infertility, study says. This is on CNN. Who are the main people going into the military? Think about it. Best friend goals, relationship goals, career goals, no spiritual goals. This place is sick. And the only way to get healthy is for you to do it yourself. Not in their systems, not in their way. In your way. It's going to be different for everybody. But ultimately, you're singing the same song. This stuff needs to be addressed. The church, the state, the control grid, everything. This stuff needs to be addressed. People who are selling the distraction programs, a lot of the times they don't even know that they're doing that, because, like, given the benefit of the doubt of some of the people in the flat earth community who are just like so enveloped, it's just everything is flat earth. And even if you mention anything else, they just lose their mind, because they actually think basically like Jesus came back. That's what the flat earth is for a lot of people. It's an idol. It's a thing. It just throws everything else out the window. And then what? Focuses on that thing. That's how a child mind would think. And that's exactly what this system wants you to think, like a child. This is why this system is okay with all of this abuse that's going on in Hollywood, in politics, and in the church. Because it's normal for people who are praying to that synthetic god to engage in that kind of, those kinds of acts. It's normal for them. It's been going on for so long. Not to mention the fact that once you start holding this system accountable for one thing, as big as some of this stuff is, it's going to start unravel a lot of the other things that have been going on. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. They're normalizing your overstimulation, glorifying your overstimulation, and normalizing your desensitization, de-evolving you and overstimulating you in this broken system. And this, a lot of the reasons why a lot of this stuff that's going on in Hollywood, a lot of the reasons why that stuff is allowed to go on, is because the church has been doing it for so long, and the church is not being held accountable for it either. You can't focus only on one thing. It's like that 7-headed dragon. You cut off one head of the dragon, it's still got 7 heads there. It's still alive. You think flat earth is going to do anything for that? At best, flat earth just puts the sword in your hand. It doesn't even do anything unless you do something with it. At best, flat earth can just put the sword in your hand. And people are walking around thinking that they're slaying the dragon because they're talking about flat earth. You better sit your simple ass down with all that nonsense or wake your ass up. Playing a video game. Think they would just release this information and not have any kind of follow-up to that? You might as well be watching Fox News if you're thinking like that, playing checkers. We are living in modern medieval Europe. This is modern medieval times. They've just upgraded. They just upgraded the way things were back in the day. So what the church and the state did for each other to the people is the church makes the state holy, while the state makes the church godly. This is why they have to tell you there's a separation between church and state. There is none. It's one and the same. Pedophilia in the church, pedophilia in the politics, pedophilia in Hollywood. One crew of assholes. The same system. So depending on what the point of the subject is, you can't address anything. You can't say anything about this information. Because the state is holy. The church says so. And you can't say anything about the church. Because the church is godly. Because the state said so. And your ancestors and your grandmothers and your parents, they also say so. And until that is being addressed as a total farce, nothing is actually really going to change. You're just going to be playing checkers, thinking that you're playing chess. And even when you start playing chess, you're not playing the 3-tiered chess for the soul, the mind, and the body. You're still in a distraction. You're still locked away. Constantly being distracted. This is what Trump is. He's an embodiment. They need that. They need to over-glorify the system. Possibly to start the destruction of the old system in order to activate this building of this new world, this new age. Trump is there to be a placeholder to show how shitty this world is. So that when things do start to, quote unquote, change, it looks that much better. It's like having to, or it's like the reaction of going outside on a sunny, warm day after having months and months and months of rain. It's depressing, locks you down. But you wouldn't be able to enjoy that sun the way that you do in that moment if you didn't have all of that rain. This is just not to say that, not to add like, oh, this is why things are the way they are. It's just to explain how the people are being played. People are being played left and right. Distraction after distraction after distraction. We're talking about politics, Bernie Sanders, Bitcoin. And this system is run by unnatural beings. Unnatural. This entire system it's an attack on the people. Look at this map that you're looking at right now. Look at this as a strategy in war. Who's going to eat that shit? First and foremost, the majority of the people who are going to eat that are the people who don't have a choice. They don't have any money. Sitting on a corner. I remember having to run down to the AM/PM. I had to run down to the AM/PM. Proud, like happy to go get dinner from the gas station. 69-cent hot dogs, 79-cent cheeseburgers. Just get a bag of them. Dinner. I mean, it's death. It's structured. It's intelligent. And there's a focus. You can't talk about that focus, man. People are too... they love it too much. Because you have this feminine movement right now that's going on because it's the idea of change. It's the next distraction. And then they're going to layer these groups of half, at best, and ultimately misinformed people. They're going to team them up. This is why you have Hollywoods with celebrities. They're going to team them up to sell you whatever it is the new focus is. So full of all this new information, you don't even realize that you're not thinking for yourself. Aliens might be real, and it seems like people are too busy to care. Feminists next door. They're going to promote that. They already are. People are sucking it up. Ancient aliens. Oprah. I mean, look, you're going to have people who are going to fall for that garbage. They are. So if you're one of the few that will not fall for that garbage, you have to ask yourself, what is your responsibility now? If you're not going to limit yourself to the distractions, then what are you going to empower yourself with? And like the first image said, you're not going to be able to go anywhere in the future if you're still weighed down by a big ass trailer full of all that information that you never looked at and you never dealt with. And I know it can be overwhelming at times. I've seen some comments where people get overwhelmed, and I see where you are. I'm there too a lot of the time, but it comes in waves. And one of the things that I have to share with people is just, take it one day at a time. You can only do so much in one day. You can only do so much in one piece of work. It's like a painting or a piece of music. Too much paint and you're gonna mess it up. Too many notes, too many things in a song, it's just gonna sound like shit. So focus, take it one day at a time, and eventually it'll get easier. It'll get easier as you get stronger. It'll get easier as you get more informed. At the same time as it's getting easier, your challenges will be more difficult. But you are now more equipped to face those challenges. But like I said, and like this system makes its money off of people not making that move because they're too comfortable. It's easy to drive through McDonald's and go get extra value meals. It's easy to do that. It's hard to make a big ass meal that's going to enliven your spirit, enliven the spirit of others and your family. But the system knows people are just there's something built in people that is largely just gonna want to be cool with things, just be like lazy. And it banks off of that. So laziness and distraction, those are money makers. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with this video. Check out that information about the church. Look into that. I'm going to start going into that even more so because it's a big piece of this puzzle. And the same way people are fighting a lot of the globe model stuff or the flat earth stuff, it's the same reason people fight the church information. Because they've prided themselves in it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Don't you love this globe earth? Don't you love this church? And then you got people who are just living like horrible, jacked up lives, and then they go to the church and become better. This is why Russell Brand is out there with his addiction tour right now, because what's happening is that people are focusing on their individual addictions, but never addressing the system of overstimulation and desensitization that profits off of people being addicted. It's another distraction. You can't say that because how many people have benefited from the church in reference to what they were doing before then? How many people have benefited from the 12-step program because of what they were doing before then? How many people have benefited from, the education system or the university system? After they were in jail for so long, they opened up their big business. That's how this system is selling the world to you. It's like, what do you mean? It's the same mentality that I mention all the time when you bring up information about the system itself and then somebody says, well, don't you have a smartphone? Don't you have a cell phone? Aren't you talking on a computer right now? That's all those comments in the comments on those videos, those documentary videos that I uploaded on this channel. All the people talking about, oh, this is just racist. It's the same response. People are not actually equipped to do anything with the information. So like a child, they respond emotionally. We're dealing with sick children. Sick children thinking that they're grown and wise. And then you have the elders who are priding themselves in just being old. Oh, look how my back hurts. I'm so old. What are you talking about? There is nothing. There's no quality to your quantity of years. There's no wisdom there. It's how far this pride goes. People spend all this time priding themselves in their distractions, and they get old. Now they pride themselves in just being old. You made it. Good job. You didn't die. Is that what it's all about? Just don't die? In many cases, for a lot of people, it is. And like I said in all these other videos, people are going to do whatever it is they're going to do. I'm not saying anybody should be a certain way. People that are working for themselves and even working for themselves at the expense of others, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. It ain't up to me to say anything otherwise. Just know that the people who are working for nature, the people who are working for the true spirit, if you are working for yourself at the expense of others, but you better believe people will be coming for your ass. And that's why this system can't say anything about, that's why people can't say anything about the system itself, is because the system is doing just that. It's making its money at the expense of people. It's making its empire, it's building its empire at the expense of people. And people are so lost, so emotional, so desensitized, so overstimulated that in many cases they will never even realize that. Because they've locked themselves into that universe and they love it. Heliocentrism is play school cosmology. The church is play school spirituality. Going to the gym is play school physical health. You don't know anything about your body other than lifting weights and running on the treadmill. You know how simple that is? That's basically a monkey mind. There's a difference between being fit and being healthy. There's a difference between being fit and being healthy. What's being promoted in social media and on television? Just get a nice ass, just work out, have some tight abs. Got nothing to do with being healthy. Do you look healthy? That's all people care about. There's no depth. Where's the spiritual gym? Where's the gymnasium for the higher mind? Where are these things? Where are these places? They're inside you. Nobody else can do it for you. It's inside each and every individual. But if you've externalized your reality into all of these distractions, you'll never figure that out. And especially if you're defending this system or emotionally responding and saying, oh, well, this is just that and that's just this. Because of the way you feel about something instead of actually researching it, you'll never see what that place is. Not in this lifetime. Maybe the next. Be afraid of your life. Be afraid of your death. That's what the system wants you to do. Because then they can be your provider. So look forward to your future alien ancestors, your alien creators, your transhumanism, virtual reality, your entire reality brought to you by simulation theory, more theories. These theories exist to promote emptiness. And you have empty people walking around defending the empty program. Because that emptiness represents their synthetic fullness. And this is that synthetic God, that play school bullshit. Name it whatever you want. Name it whatever you want. What matters is what you're actually observing, what you're actually saying. Like, what's going on here? But that's a whole level of consciousness people are not even allowed to go into if they're constantly being bombarded by the distractions of this reality. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go into with this video. I keep wanting to spend time on each image that I'm showing here, and just break it down in like one little minute. But once I start going, I mean, I basically do that in my own way. Maybe I'll do it in another video, but you see where I'm coming from. The information that I've been sharing recently, it's just the beginning. There's a lot of information out there. I would urge people to do the work on your own. Research it on your own. There's something with doing it on your own to where it affects the greater, like it affects everybody once you do that, because you carry it with you in every interaction and in the non-physical communication that we have with people, with each other. That's what we're really dealing with. That's what we're really tapping into. There's a non-physical language. There's a non-physical connection that we have that the system says doesn't exist. Because once you start speaking that language, you start inherently connecting with nature. And that's not good for business. So, yeah, it's not good for business. So thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.